Hey everyone, I'm Spider-Man 1991, and I like to review comic books every week. Unfortunately though, since this week my stack of comic books was probably the thickest it's been in a while, I decided to split my review into two parts. One part dealing with all my Image and Marvel books, one part dealing with all my DC books. The part you're watching right now is basically my DC review. But also, so my Image and Marvel book review should be up somewhere. I'll put an annotation and make sure you can click on it so you can watch it after this. But until then, let's talk about some DC comics. Starting with Aquaman number 32. Triton Base actually does something for the plot, as their experiments lead to the creation of a creature called Chimera, who's basically made up of a bunch of different sea animals and who has telepathic control over sea life like Aquaman. However, it's even greater than the King of Atlantis is. And Chimera basically tracks down Aquaman and orders all the sea creatures to attack him. And that's what goes on to stop Aquaman right when he's headed back to Atlantis. Meanwhile, back in Atlantis, Mera and Tula deal with the rebellious citizens of Atlantis, who are all pretty much forming a rebellion against Arthur, who are trying to basically take back Atlantis for King Orm, Ocean Master. Alright. Finally, like I said, Triton Base actually does something for the plot as they create this creature known as Chimera to fight off, goes and fights Aquaman. However, I really want Aquaman to. However, I'm sick of Triton Base because I want Aquaman to come back to Atlantis. I kind of thought that's what the conclusion of Jeff Johns' run on Aquaman would be. Aquaman returning to Atlantis. In this case, he's not back in Atlantis. He's just dealing with a bunch of crap that's basically keeping him from returning to Atlantis, while his wife, Mera, is dealing with all of this. I really think that Mera and Aquaman work best when they are together, and I would very much like to see that again, but that's not the case, as Aquaman's pretty much dealing with his own stuff outside of Atlantis, while Mera's basically taking care of all the Atlantean stuff that he's supposed to be doing for him. So what I would like to see in the near future for this title is if after Aquaman deals with Chimera, he heads back to Atlantis, he and Mera talk this out, and maybe he spends some time in Atlantis taking care of this rebellion before he has to go head back to Triton, deal with whatever threat of the week comes from Triton Base again. So, yeah, right now, Aquaman, I'd say skip it. Okay, next up, Batman number 32. Jim Gordon and Lucius Fox try to break into the Riddler's building, with Jim Gordon leading the SEALs from last issue who showed up, while Batman's also sneaking in through the way he came in after dealing with Riddler's challenge, all while Lucius Fox is kind of walking them through this from a van nearby. And basically when we get in, though, Batman realizes that, however, while Batman and Gordon are breaking into the building, Batman starts to realize that that Riddler's not here. They need to get out immediately. Unfortunately, Riddler's onto them, and Batman's able to escape, but Gordon and the SEALs are still trapped in the building. Afterwards, Batman goes and meets with Lucius Fox, and they aren't able to track the signal again. However, there was one location that they did manage to bring up, and Batman is able to basically locate where Riddler's actual base is. And this is where, and big spoiler here, so you may want to fast forward, but basically Riddler's base is actually the Sphinx in the Gotham Museum that Bruce Wayne and Edward Nygma first met in the 0-year story arc, like way back in the first act of this. So Batman goes and finds Riddler in the Sphinx and tells him to bring back the power, but of course Riddler doesn't agree with him and also activates the homing beacons that the SEALs have with them that signals their home base to bring in an airstrike. Okay, so all I can say with this, I really do like 0 Year because I think what Scott Snyder is doing is great, because he's actually making me like the Riddler. I think that's amazing because Riddler, he's always been the villain. Because when you think of Riddler, you automatically think back of the Silver Age version and the version from the Batman Adam West cartoon that was always a bit more campy than a modern Batman supervillain. But the way Scott Snyder portrays him actually does make him more of a threat. And he's actually, and if you kind of realize though when you read this issue that Riddler has actually been able to outsmart Batman. And yeah, you can also say that this is still Batman during his first year. He's still not quite the master detective we know today. So there's that, but still he's outsmarting him. I think that's very impressive. I think Scott Snyder's doing a good job on this title, making Riddler more of a dangerous threat than what we once thought, especially since information is his main weapon. Also, really nice. There's really great teamwork in the beginning between Lucius Fox, Jim Gordon, and Batman, which is nice. And there's also a really nice moment when Batman's headed to the base, and his sort of inner dialogue is a message he left to Alfred. It's a very heartwarming message he left to Alfred about how about his first year being Batman stuff. So that was very nice. And also, Greg Capullo's artwork is still amazing. So overall, I would say Batman, definitely a buy. Okay, next up, Batman Eternal number 12. The trial of Jim Gordon is beginning. Batman goes early on his way to his trial. Batman disguises himself as one of the guards and speaks to Jim Gordon as he's moving to the courthouse, and he does kind of offer to break Jim out, but Jim tells him he tells Batman basically, don't worry about me, worry about the city, and if you can get me out of here, do it legally. Make sure you have proof. Also, our sort of Batman Eternal exclusive character, Lieutenant Bard, figures out a plan, pretty much pastes together some information, and is starting to figure out a way to end the gang war, and he keeps this only between Captain Maggie Sawyer, Lieutenant Harvey Bullock, and Batman. And and also Bard basically asks Bullock to help him set up a meeting to go see Batman, which is pretty impressive. And also Harper Row, on a side story, Harper Road is able to hack Red Robin's computer network, which fortunately Red Robin is able to kick her out of. And then Tim goes back to Wayne Manor to ask Alfred about Harper Row, and also finds out about Alfred's daughter Julia. And after his first day on trial, when Jim Gordon is back in Blackgate, he's brought out of his cell because he has a late night visitor, and that visitor turns out to be, spoiler alert, may want to fast forward, his son, James Gordon Jr., who he just discovered is alive. Alright. Batman Eternal is still proving itself as a weekly series, so there is multiple plots going on. In this case, we've got the gang war, the trial of Jim Gordon, and Harper Row. Now, I think the character I said that's pretty much exclusive in this series, Lieutenant Bard, he really is a lot like a younger Jim Gordon, like the way he's sort of planning things out outside of GCPD, because right now GCPD is pretty corrupt since Falcone's back. Also, and the way he's working with Batman is definitely reminiscent of how Jim Gordon was kind of during year 1 and 0 year, which is very nice. Also, the reveal of James Gordon Jr., the way he kind of reveals himself to Jim Sr. is very nice and very well done, because right now Junior's working with the Suicide Squad. He's still legally dead to the public and everyone else. He's still dead. So revealing himself to Jim Sr. at the end of this issue was definitely a good way to do it. The way they kind of revealed to Jim Gordon, like, guess what, your son's alive. That was very well done. Basically, this issue 12 was a real big improvement over last issue. I would say that if you're only getting Batman Eternal on kind of an on-off basis, definitely pick up this issue. It is a must-have. Alright, next up, Flash, number 32. I want to point out that this isn't the regular cover. This is the bombshell variant. That was the only version available at the shop I go to. Anyways, Flash is still dealing with the person who stole a number of weapons that were used by several past supervillains. And in this case, in this issue, he has to deal with someone using a supervillain named Merge's gloves, which have the ability to merge different forms of matter and distort things, and also a gun by a villain named Gravitor. After the villain is able to use Gravitor's gun to distract Flash and get away, later that night, Barry goes to a baseball game with Wally West and Iris West, and while talking to Wally, the two kind of start to bond over baseball, which is kind of nice. And also, 12 years in the future Barry Allen, who's wearing a blue version of the Flash costume and can now somehow use blue lightning, goes and visits Captain Cold on his deathbed, who basically, Captain Cold is like somehow in this sort of, is pretty much living on a respirator, and Barry goes to see him right as Cold is about to die, and pretty much talks to him about how they've always been sort of at each other, head to head with one another. And also Barry does reference how Cold joined the Justice League, and it's pretty much like it's pretty much sort of mutual. It's kind of one of those weird moments where two enemies, when one of them's about to die, kind of have this whole, I wouldn't say forgiveness, but just kind of this like peaceful moment right before the one who's dying finally dies. So yeah, okay. Really, I don't have any big complaints with this issue. I thought that the stuff that we got with Future Flash, who pretty much in his last two appearances, he's killed Gorilla Grodd, then he killed Mirror Master. It's good to see him visiting one of his old enemies and not actually being directly involved for this enemy's death. Like, he's just having a peaceful moment right before this enemy dies, and they have a moment, and he kind of has a mutual sort of respect for this enemy in a way. And so, yeah, that was a nice moment between Future Barry and Future Captain Cold. Also, for the stuff in the present, it's good to see Barry and Wally sort of sparking up a friendship in a way. So yeah, Flash number 32. I really don't have any really big complaints with this. I would say if you don't really have a lot of comics to get and you still have some extra money, I would say check out Flash number 32. It's not a must-have, but I would say if you can afford it, because it's only $2.99. Definitely check it out. Okay, next up, Justice League number 31. One of the comics I was really looking forward to this week. Bruce Wayne pretty much is pretty much talking to Lex Luthor, who knows that he's Batman. Of course, Bruce is trying to dissuade him, telling him Lex is being ridiculous. Unfortunately, though, Lex won't take no for an answer. Takes out a gun, aims it at Bruce. Fortunately, Alfred's nearby. He takes out a gun, aims it at Lex. Then a fight breaks out between all three of them. Bruce tries to kick the gun out of Lex's hand. He doesn't let go, and Lex fires the gun, and he hits the clock that's pretty much an entrance to the Batcave. And when Luthor does, the clock is like, I don't know, that's got to be one powerful gun Luthor had, because it basically blows the clock apart into pieces, and he's pretty much getting a view of a stairwell that's leading directly down to the cave. And at that point, Bruce can't really deny it, and he talks to Luthor, and Luthor still says that tells Bruce that he knows that something big is coming. Whoever destroyed the crime, Earth 3 is coming this way, and we need to be prepared. And the best way they can be prepared is if he joins the Justice League. And of course, Bruce still refuses and basically kicks Luthor out of his house. Then shortly after Luthor leaves, Superman calls Bruce and tells him that Cyborg found Power Ring's ring, and he and Wonder Woman are headed to that location. Bruce says he's on his way, but he also tells Superman that they need to talk because Luthor knows I'm Batman. And is what Bruce says. And also, Meanwhile, earlier in the Watchtower, Cyborg and Shazam do kind of have a little bit of a bonding moment, but the issue ends with the newly appointed Power Ring, a woman named Jessica Cruz, sort of trying to control the ring, but it's going out of control. The ring is causing a bunch of chaos, and suddenly Power Ring is confronted by the Doom Patrol, which consists of Element Woman, the Chief, Robot, Negative Man, and Elastigirl. Okay, so Justice League number 31. This was a fantastic issue. I do like how Jeff Johns is kind of still playing around with the whole Luthor knows Bruce Wayne's Batman thing, and Batman pretty much Batman still, even though Luthor knows who he is, still refuses to let Luthor into the Justice League. I think that's a lot. I think that proves that Batman's really got some big cojones. Big cojones, and he's awesome. And also, I think the way that Batman kind of talks to Superman about this, saying, Luthor knows who I am, we have to do something about this. I think what's gonna happen is Batman and Superman are gonna talk about this and think, we could probably use this to our advantage, because Luthor. And so basically, I think what's gonna happen is Batman's gonna tell Luthor, okay, you're in, and then he's gonna let Luthor into the Justice League, and then Superman's gonna probably get angry and then quit, and this will probably be like some whole plan that Batman and Superman have going on behind their backs and stuff. So, I mean, I think that's possible. I think that is something that those two would definitely do. And also, finally we get the first full appearance of the Doom Patrol, which I think is great. Not exactly sure how the new Doom Patrol came out. Hopefully we'll get into that maybe next issue. Also, I did say that there was a scene between Cyborg and Shazam where they kind of have a moment of friendship, and it's kind of funny because they're both on monitor duty, and Shazam's kind of bored, and he asks, "Do we have a ping pong table or something like that?" and asks if they have an Xbox, and Cyborg says, "I got one in my left shoulder," and so Shazam's like, "Wow, that's cool," and Cyborg's like, maybe you could use your magic to try to find the ring, and Shazam says, "Okay," and Shazam kind of uses his magic and says, "What I want, help me find what I want to appear right in front of me." And of course, right when he does that, he summons a ping pong table because he's bored. And at that point, he asks Cyborg if he wants to play. So yeah, I do remember in an interview, Jeff Johns did say that he was going to make Cyborg and turn Cyborg and Shazam into like the new Blue Beetle and Booster Gold of this Justice League. So I think that'll be definitely something to see. Also, we definitely get some interesting character development with the whole Luthor and Captain Cold joining the Justice League, because also Captain Cold appears in this issue too when he's going to Luthor Corp, and apparently he's being brought on as a new employee, and I think that's what's going to... And I think once Luthor's in the Justice League, he's going to bring in Captain Cold. And also Captain Cold, when he's at Luthor Corp, people are greeting him with a bunch of fame and stuff like, "Hey, it's Captain Cold! He's helps Lex Luthor save the world! Yeah, can I get a picture with you?" So Cold's getting used to being a hero too. But overall, if you enjoyed Forever Evil, then you are definitely going to love basically this whole aftermath story we got going on in Justice League right now. It's definitely a buy. Alright, now for the final comic, something I was really looking forward to. This is something that I know DC Comics has been talking about a lot. Superman number 32. This is a big it's written by Jeff Johns, and it's art by John Romita Jr., a longtime Marvel artist who's now working for DC. Alright, but back to the issue. Basically what happens is Superman at the Daily Planet, Perry White asks Clark Kent to come by, and Clark shows up, and Perry offers Clark his old job. If you remember, Clark did quit the Daily Planet back in, I believe, Superman number 15. Of course, Clark's like, Clark tells Perry that he's not sure if he wants to return to the planet right now because things are kind of okay with him, but of course, Perry kind of interprets Clark's actions as kind of pushing everyone away because basically Perry's kind of seeing Clark as kind of thinks Clark's just pushing everyone away. He references how he's worked with Lois for years, but he never made a move with her. Also, how he doesn't really seem to be spending enough time with anyone who he's ever known. Sort of that. And of course, Clark says he's fine, and he tells Perry that he'll probably think about his offer for a few days. And then as Clark comes home, he's he's on the phone. He's trying to talk Wonder Woman, his girlfriend, coming over. Unfortunately, she's busy. Then he tries getting a hold of Batman, but he ends up leaving a message through Alfred. And basically, it's Clark. And basically, Clark's eating dinner by himself, and he's looking at some old photographs. Then suddenly, he hears a cry for help. Changes into Superman, and he stops this giant spaceship that's attacking Metropolis. And the whole time, the fight's being observed by this hooded figure who seems to know that Superman is Clark Kent. Back to the fight, Clark is breaking into the ship trying to figure out who's piloting it, when suddenly he has to fight this huge alien. Superman fights the alien, and suddenly Superman's joined by this other superpowered being, and together they take out the alien. And of course, the alien asks Superman, where is he? And Superman says, you're in Metropolis, you're in America. And the guy who helped him fight the alien says his name is Ulysses, and he's surprised that Earth is still standing because he thought he was the last human. And at the start of this issue, though, the very first page, we do see that the character Ulysses was from Earth, but 25 years ago, his parents were scientists, and they were studying alternate dimensions. Unfortunately, something went wrong. Their lab was slowly being swallowed by some sort of chaos dimension, and the only way they could survive was to prevent from spreading is if they self-destructed their lab. And they also had to ensure the sun, and they also put the lab into lockdown so no one could get out. And the only way they could save their infant son was basically by sending him to another dimension where they knew the atmosphere was similar to Earth's, and also its air could somehow empower humans. So they basically send their son to this other dimension, and now he's back as this hero Ulysses. So his origin is kind of similar to Superman's. Okay, pretty much this issue wasn't really that bad, because obviously Superman, we're getting a new creative team on here. We've got Jeff Johns, who has written Superman before. He did write Superman in Action Comics a couple years ago. I do remember though that he did. I do remember, this is odd, but I remember an issue of Action Comics that Jeff Johns wrote. There was a similar conversation between Clark Kent and Perry White, where Perry does question Clark kind of being alone, isolated from everyone else, and it felt like the same vibe. It was almost not the exact same conversation, but kind of the same message when Clark is speaking to Perry in this issue. And also, it kind of introduces us to the current status quo in Superman. We've got Superman dating Wonder Woman, also Lois Lane dating someone else, and also Jimmy Olsen, who apparently inherited a bunch of money from his rich parents, who's not really doing anything with it. Don't know really how that's important. I don't think Jimmy's been relevant in years, but yeah. So this issue was a great first issue for a new creative team. I mean, going into it, I felt like I didn't need to go back and read anything from the last couple of issues of Superman to understand what's going on here. Also, John Romita Jr.'s artwork, it's very nice. I think it's definitely a fresh take on Superman. The cover that's used in this issue, it is a wraparound cover, so I can't exactly show it, but it's basically Clark opening up his shirt and transforming into Superman. But yeah, Romita's artwork is very nice. It's definitely a new look on Superman, especially since he's done a lot of work with Marvel for most of his career. It's very nice to see. The big deal is that he's now working on something with DC, and I think that's great. I really think that with Jeff Johns' writing, he's one of my favorite writers, and John Romita Jr.'s artwork, that they're definitely going to do a good job on this title, and maybe put Superman back in the top, and maybe some of the best-selling comic slots again. So yeah, overall, I would say if you are a Superman fan and you haven't been reading and you haven't checked out Superman that much since the New 52, you should definitely give Superman number 32 a shot. 32 a shot because it's really awesome, and I would say it's definitely something every Superman fan should check out. Okay, that's it for my DC review this week. Again, I should have an annotation for the Image and Marvel comics somewhere up in this video soon. So check that out if you get the chance. Again, thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for checking out my channel. I'm Spider-Man 1991 saying thanks for watching.